What's up, everybody? This is the Sports League Podcast. Back for another week. I'm your host, Alex Leak. We got the co-host, Amanda, back on the show as always. Good to have you, Amanda.
Always good to be here.
And we got a special guest, Chad Brown, a longtime NFL linebacker, played for the Steelers and the Seahawks and the Patriots. Great to have you on the show, Chad.
Good to be back with you, my man. Looking forward to this playoff discussion.
Absolutely. It's your fifth time on the show, and it's always a great time having you on, and you really know your stuff. So you guys are in for a treat with this episode. Yeah, Chad played, he was a member of the 1990 Colorado Buffaloes national championship team, played 15 years in the NFL, and played in 13 playoff games, including Super Bowl 30 with the Steelers, losing to the Dallas Cowboys. So Chad, we're going to get started here with the Steelers. Somehow overcame quarterback and other key injuries to make the playoffs at 9-8 and play the Bills. They lose 31-17 in snowy Buffalo. But Mike Tomlin, once again, for 17 years, has never had a losing record. And this year, even more impressive with, Kenny Pickett getting hurt, TJ Watt going down, all the injuries they had to deal with, and then Mason Rudolph, of all people, leading them on that run into the playoffs. How impressed are you with the Steelers and Mike Tomlin, their ability to do that every year?
Mike Tomlin and the Steelers' track record of consistency is mind-blowing. If you think about some of these NFL franchises, particularly these teams that are looking for coaches this offseason, there's still a few out there. Think about the Steelers have had 3 coaches since 1969. That's been bananas since 1969. So the track record of stability and consistency is there. So for Mike Tomlin to fit the franchise mold of being consistent, of being stable, no surprise there whatsoever. And so I know the playoff success hasn't been there over the last couple of years. I know Steeler fans are growing a little bit impatient, but to think the Rooney family is suddenly going to go opposite of their model, which they've been practicing for a long time, of stability allows winning to happen, and make some rash decision because of playoff results as opposed to winning records consistently for Mike Tomlin, I think those Steeler fans are going to be disappointed. Mike Tomlin is going to be the coach, I think, into the foreseeable future for the Steelers. I know he's got 1 more year left on his deal, and I'm sure they'll get that taken care of, and he'll sign an extension here soon. Now there will be some changes. They're going to bring in a new offensive coordinator. We'll see what they do at the quarterback position. Kenny's going to get the opportunity to compete, but we'll see if they bring in another draft pick or if they go into free agency. I don't think Mitch Trubisky will be back, but probably Mason Rudolph will get another opportunity as well. So we'll see what happens there. And clearly, life after Big Ben has been a bit rough for the Steelers offense. And they've got to find a way to get that guy. But they're not the only team searching for that guy. We were laughing and joking before the show talking about Seattle and Russell Wilson, obviously here in Denver where I live. They're looking for that guy after thinking they had the guy with Russell Wilson and giving him a $250 million contract. So the Steelers won't be the only one trying to find that quarterback under center, but the job that Mike Tomlin has done to keep that team together, despite the offensive woes and issues, despite play calling not what it's supposed to be, despite underperforming quarterback play, despite some interesting stuff from wide receivers giving up on plays and not blocking and all that kind of stuff, despite all the locker room stuff that happened this year, Mike Tomlin still managed to keep that ship going in the right direction. I think he deserves a massive tip of the cap because there's a lot of holes in that Steeler team as far as talents. But I think the culture within that locker room still produces those winning seasons because it's a tried and true culture that pretty much is the same when I was there 30 plus years ago.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've seen how successful it's been over the years, and they just need to kind of piece a team together. I mean, you mentioned Russell Wilson. Do you think Russ could be a potential quarterback option for the Steelers?
I think Russ would have to look at, or Omar Khan, the general manager, would have to look at Russell Wilson as a possibility. I'm watching Russ up close the last 2 years here in Denver, and I've also called a number of Seahawks games towards the end of his run there. Russ's play has definitely declined. His ability to buy time in the pocket, his ability to escape the pocket, I think that's beginning to get less and less. And then for the offensive coordinator that they bring in Pittsburgh, if they go after Russ, it's going to have to be a coordinator who's very used to Russ making plays outside the playbook. for Sean Payton here in Denver, Sean Payton wants Drew Brees. He wants a quarterback that's going to execute the play perfectly and throw to the right receiver and run the play as it's designed, because Sean is attempting to stack plays on top of each other. For the whole first quarter, I'm going to show the defense a bunch of out routes. And then first play of the second quarter, now we're going to go out and up. With Russell Wilson, that became very difficult for Sean Payton here in Denver because Russell Wilson was so often going off the script. So Sean was calling plays to set up the defense, but then the setup play wouldn't happen. So then he never got to his home run play he was trying to get to. So if the Steelers want to go the Russell Wilson route, they're going to have to find a coordinator who's going to be comfortable with that style of offense, because Russell Wilson cannot be a true pocket passer.
So my husband's whole family is from Colorado. Well, they're still in Colorado. My husband's from there. Big Buff fans, so they're a big fan of you. But they're still out in the Grand Junction area. And I remember when they picked up Russ, there was a lot of questions about how he and Sean Payton would work together. Like that family would just sit around and be like, I don't know if their styles are going to mesh. And I mean, I think you explained it really well. It did not seem like it was a good match from the jump.
Yeah, a lot off schedule, right? Yeah. Ad-libbing.
Yeah, the Sean Payton Russell Wilson marriage, I think Sean Payton tried to make it work, and bit his tongue for a while when they went on that 5-game winning streak, and Russ was doing Russ stuff and not Sean Payton stuff. But in the end, Sean Payton knows how to win games a certain way, and he wants a quarterback that fits within that mold. So the off-schedule stuff does not allow Sean to be the head coach / play caller that Sean Payton wants to be. So now the Broncos are in search, and Russell Wilson's in search for a team that's going to be comfortable with his style of play. Is he a hard worker? Yeah. Is he a good leader? I think he is. There's some of that other stuff that comes with Russ, and folks are, I'm sure, heard about that here in Denver, also from Seattle. But in the end, it's got to be a marriage that works, because if the play caller and the quarterback aren't understanding how the plays want to be called and how the plays want to be executed, and then the ability that guy to actually go out there and execute it, it's just going to be frustration and a butting of heads. And it didn't even work out for a full season here in Denver between Sean Payton and Russell Wilson. Yeah,
that's going to be interesting to see, because we were all surprised, that it ended so quickly, and in the fashion that it ended, with the midseason benching and all that. And I think Russ is still good enough in a league, whether you have a quarterback or you don't. It's very black and white. So if you can go get Russell Wilson, a lot of teams will sign off on that, I think, and we'll see how much he has left in the tank. But here's something, a story that broke today, and it ties in with you. After you beat the Colts in 1995 with your Steelers in the AFC Championship game, and Jim Harbaugh's Colts. It was 20-16. It came down to a Hail Mary that was almost caught. Now Jim Harbaugh just today is agreeing to a 5-year deal with the LA Chargers. Me and you have talked about, Brandon Staley and the Chargers issues before. Now they get, in my opinion, a huge upgrade with Harbaugh, a proven quarterback developer everywhere he's been. I think, tell me if you agree with this, but I think it's a perfect fit, Jim Harbaugh with Justin Herbert, right? And we could see Herbert really take off from here on out.
Yeah, I think we knew when Harbaugh was having these flirtations with the NFL, he was looking for the right fit. And the right fit is who's the general manager, who's the owner, and who's the quarterback. The Chargers clearly have the quarterback in Justin Herbert. I know some folks are beginning to doubt his skill set. I've got no doubts that he's an elite quarterback. I know the track record of success as far as wins isn't there, but I think we all can agree that Brandon Staley was fired for due cause. Some of the dereliction of duty he had as an NFL head coach, relying upon analytics his first year, and then also some quirky decisions along the way after that, certainly put the Chargers in a bad spot. So I think Justin Herbert still got it. So for Harbaugh to make the move from Michigan, and after winning a national championship and recognizing that a lot of that team, a lot of those seniors are going to be leaving, the guys who came back to try to win a national championship. So the odds of repeating were probably going to be very difficult at Michigan, and making the move to the Chargers, because Harbaugh is the ultimate competitor. And if you win a college championship, Don't you want to be Jimmy Johnson and then move into the NFL and then win a Super Bowl championship as well?
Yeah.
So you want to put yourself in that elite kind of category. This is the kind of move you've got to make. I'm not surprised that he's made it. I'm not surprised that he's made the move to the Chargers because of Justin Herbert. And the Spanos family ownership has been questioned over the years, but they're just are going to invest a huge chunk of cash into a new practice and training facility in LA, where they've been kind of operating under in a kind of a bootleg fashion for a couple of years. So now ownership is officially invested. They're obviously going to have to pay Harbaugh a ton of money. So I think this speaks to him that I've got an owner who's willing to cough up some coin for facilities. He's obviously going to pay me. Maybe I can also, lean on him and convince him to make some big free agent signings when needed. So the ownership and the quarterback is there. And the Chargers suddenly, after kind of being dismissed within the AFC West, I think have got to be talked about as potentially one of the top teams within the AFC West because of Harbaugh coming in and that quarterback guru connection he'll probably have with Justin Herbert.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
as a Michigan fan, obviously I'm a little bummed, but Alex tried to make a deal with me probably a month or two ago. He was like, all right, listen, if I can promise you Michigan wins the Natty, can Harbaugh come to the Bears? Like, would you make that deal? And I know he's pretty upset that Harbaugh didn't end up in Chicago. I think he would have been a great coach there. But again, you said he needed three things: a quarterback, good GM situation, and I just think Chicago's missing 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
So the Justin Fields situation is such a mess right now. But something Harbaugh has said is that he believes that JJ McCarthy is the best Michigan quarterback in history. Do you see his skills translating to the NFL? Do you think he'll be kind of a quick start like CJ Stroud was?
I see him more in that Russell Wilson type of style of play because JJ McCarthy makes plays with his legs.
Yeah.
And let's not forget this year, as talented as this Michigan team was, he won 5 games and didn't throw a touchdown pass.
Yeah.
Now, part of that is by design because Harbaugh over the last couple of years in Michigan has definitely gone to a little bit more of a power scheme. And they really recruited and honed their offensive line, wanted to lean upon that group. But also, I think McCarthy's just leaves a little bit to be desired as a passer. So for him to walk into the league and have a CJ Stroud kind of effect, I don't see that. Could he grow his game? I certainly think it's possible. Does he have the prerequisite skill set to become an NFL quarterback? I think he does. I don't think he has the processing ability right now. I don't think he's got the management of the ball skills that he would need to be a true starting NFL quarterback, particularly as a rookie. But down the road, we'll see what happens. I mean, there's a former Michigan quarterback who wasn't even a full-time starter at Michigan, who went on to become the greatest of all time. So I will never doubt any other Michigan quarterbacks because of Tom Brady.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, but in JJ McCarthy's defense, like, you don't need to be that good when you have Blake Corum. Like,
right.
Yeah, and that offensive line and that defense to keep the score down. And yeah, I agree with you, Chad. I think that McCarthy is one of those guys that he needs to get drafted into the right system and maybe sit a year or two and develop. And if he can develop the right way, then he can be a guy maybe potentially down the road.
I like the idea of Pete Carroll coaching him. I think Pete Carroll would be a great coach. It's funny that you said go in the right way of Russell Wilson, because I subconsciously agreed with you there without even realizing that.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens, with these proven Super Bowl winning head coaches who are still out there doing interviews. So Pete and Bill, and but my understanding is neither one of those guys have gotten a ton of attention. We're hearing all these young coordinators getting interviews and things like that, but the 2 most accomplished people in the hiring cycle, I think Bill's gotten the 2 interviews in Atlanta, but outside of that, I'm not sure if he or Pete have had any other detailed meetings with teams. So it'll be interesting how that all plays out.
So, Chad, something I got to ask you, and I'm sure the fans are curious about. You played in multiple big games: the 1990 National Championship game, the Super Bowl against the Cowboys. And we've seen it here in these playoffs, like the Cowboys, Packers, and other games where there's a lot of pressure on teams. And what does it feel like as a player, the big game pressure, the big game atmosphere? Can you feel that? Is it a different vibe? And is it easy to find yourself like pressing and trying to do too much in such a big game?
Well, I think there's a couple of different levels of play within the NFL. Obviously, the preseason is one level of play. Then you start the regular season and you step up your physicality, the level of play, the attention to detail. As the season progresses, you kind of slowly ratchet it up. But, the NFL has done a great job over the last couple of years of scheduling those critical division games late in the season. So
Yeah.
that's when they almost become like an extension of the playoffs. So the level of play ratchets up again late in the season with those division games to determine playoff seeding and things like that. Then we get to the playoffs. And that's when that's when it takes a big leap forward, not just from the physicality, attention to detail, and film study the coaches do, but also the pressure, to your point, Alex, that the guys feel on the field. And some teams are built to handle that. Some players are built to handle that. And some teams just aren't. And for whatever reason, the Dallas Cowboys cannot handle the big game. The player, Dak Prescott, seems pretty good. CeeDee Lamb seems pretty good. Parsons seems pretty good. Offensive line seems pretty good. Tony Pollard can be an explosive back. So there's pieces in place, but the culture, I think, of finding ways to win in big moments, of stepping your game up, is not there. So when the season ended for the Cowboys, I was thinking maybe Jerry Jones was going to have a thought about Bill Belichick, because Mike McCarthy got the team to this particular place. Why not bring in the guy with more Lombardi trophies than anyone else to coach this team, to get us back, to get us to holding our own Lombardi trophy? Because Bill Belichick, in my time in New England, built a culture where you embraced those pressure pack environments. Yeah. You were ready for those because you were as coached and as detailed as you could possibly be. And you went onto the field incredibly confident with what you were about to do. So because of Bill's ability to do that, that's why the Patriots were always successful. An example of that would be, we would have, obviously, practices almost every day during the year, but a couple times during the year, he would throw up a surprise 2-minute drill. And a 2-minute drill, which replicates a 2-minute drill during the game, he would just call in the middle of practice, 2-minute drill, and he would call out the scenario. 1:13 left on the clock. We got one timeout. We're down by 4. We got to score a touchdown. And to see Tom Brady instantly shift into coolest, calmest dude in the room mold and go out there and execute this 2-minute drill to perfection in practice was fascinating to be a part of and to see that. Now, everywhere I've been, we've always practiced a 2-minute drill, but surprise 2-minute drills, that was only in New England. And it speaks to the Patriots' preparation and ability to excel in those moments. So I'm not sure what Mike McCarthy was doing and how the practice plan went, but there's a way to prepare your teams to excel in those moments, including the Cowboys aren't one of those teams.
Yeah, great answer on that.
Well, I mean, and we saw Mike McCarthy in Green Bay. I mean, Aaron Rodgers would go to the NFC Championship game, or he'd make it to the divisional round and lose. Like, Aaron Rodgers should have won more than one Super Bowl while he was in Green Bay. Like, it's insane that he was that talented. That team had that much talent. Like, the receiving core we had was insane. But I mean, we've seen McCarthy make it to the big games and not be able to get to the next level. So it's interesting to see him doing the same thing in Dallas.
Yeah, and I have found when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. You know, we shouldn't give people 2 and 3 and 5 different chances to continue to show us who they are. A similar situation happened here in Denver. John Fox got the Denver Broncos to the Super Bowl, and then John Elway let him go because he wanted somebody who would be able to bring that winning culture. Gary Kubiak ended up being the guy who took the Broncos from a very good, deep playoff run team to a team that was actually hoisting that Lombardi trophy.
Yeah. And then Amanda was, pleasantly surprised with Jordan Love and his hot streak to end the year. 22 touchdowns, 1 pick going into that Niners game, and played pretty well. I mean, as a Packers, hater, someone who's going to pick against the Packers, the fact that they kept it so close against the Niners was surprising, and it was a great, very hard-fought game. I'm sure you enjoyed that one as well.
That was a really good game, and the Packers played the Broncos. I know I keep referring to the Broncos, but that's obviously the team I'm closest to here in Denver. The Packers played the Broncos earlier this year, and the Broncos got a win there. And Jordan Love threw an interception late. And I turned to other guys in the press box, and I was like, watch. He's going to learn from that. He is going to learn from that. And he did for up until, the the Niners game where he threw across his body in a late similar fashion through the interception late. But this is the struggles a young quarterback has to go through. Sometimes you learn not just what to do, but what not to do in those situations. So I think having had it happen twice in one season in the playoffs and that Bronco game, that late interception, that desperation when there's still downs to be played, you could throw that ball away and have another down to live in both those situations. So to be cognizant of the situation as a quarterback, yes, it's fourth down, it's 4th and 14. Yeah, you got to throw the ball up to somebody. But it's second down or third down, you still got time on the clock. You still got an opportunity to fight another down. So let's be smart with the football here. So I think that's one of these things he's going to take away from this season, while he's also going to take away a lot of those positives and that streak he went on late in the season. He's going to take a few of those negative plays with him into this offseason and learn not to do that again.
Yeah.
What's funny for me is I've been watching him throw, and he's had a couple amazing throws this season where he's got both feet off the ground and he slings it. And I was having flashbacks of Brett Favre. And so the crossbody interception, I was like, I fucking told you he plays like Brett Favre. Like superimpose that over a Brett Favre interception. I mean, that is, beautiful 1996 Brett Favre right there. Like, just that's his trademark.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a great season for Packers fans. Like I said so many times over the season, like I had no expectations this season. We could have won 2 games. We could have won 9. I have no idea. Like I had the hardest time picking them in games. And, of course, they are the Packers, so they're gonna get good enough to get your hopes up and then crush it at the last second, because that's kind of the standard. But do you think Love's success will continue? Do you see him, rising up the ranks?
Well, this is now for a quarterback who has his first year starting. This offseason, going from year 1 starting to year 2, is critical because you put a lot on tape. And defensive coordinators now have an entire offseason to study all that tape and figure out the things that you do well that they want to try to take away, and the things that you don't do so well that they want to force you to do. So now he's got to grow to overcome that. And we've seen some quarterbacks come in and have a good first year starting and then never able to grow past that. So now it's up to Jordan Love and his quarterback guru. All these guys have one. We'll see who it is. And it's up to Matt LaFleur to figure out how, from a play calling, from a schematic perspective, to put him in the spots where he's most comfortable and not ask him to do things that make him uncomfortable. Now, all those pieces have to grow for him to continue this trajectory that he set for himself this season. I think it was a great year because a lot of folks hated the draft pick, said, I can't believe you've got Aaron Rodgers and you're drafting a quarterback in the first round when you could have gotten this, you could have gotten a receiver, you couldn't have gotten that, all these things they could have gotten. And now he's beginning to show that it was a smart pick. Gutekunst, the GM, I think can, feel a little proud when he looks himself in the mirror in the morning that he got this whole thing right. But now it's time to step your game up and grow another level here for Jordan Love.
Yeah, Goot got a lot of hate from Packers fans for that.
Yes, he did.
Keeping it in division, I mean, the Detroit Lions have gone on an incredible run this year, going 12-5 in the regular season, winning the NFC North finally, then beating Matthew Stafford and the Rams, hosting 2 playoff games in Detroit, beating Tampa Bay, and now they're in their first NFC Championship game since 1991. Their last conference championship appearance, they got blown out by the Redskins, 41-10. Do you think the Lions are capable of going into San Francisco and beating such a loaded 49ers team? Or do you think the talent level that San Francisco should be able to get the win at home? How do you see this game going?
The San Francisco 49ers, for whatever reason, their reliance upon Deebo Samuels is shocking because there's so much other talent on that roster. But once he is out of action, that offense really starts to struggle. So that's a major concern. He's got the shoulder injury. They say there's no fracture or anything like that. We'll see if he's able to play. But yeah, that's the biggest concern for me if you're looking at it from a 49ers perspective. The Detroit Lions, on the other hand, to your point, the Dan Campbell effect has been awesome. From his opening press conference when he was talking about biting off kneecaps, to some of the crazy stuff he said when they were on Hard Knocks last year, to the actual on-the-field success this year. They finished last season on a tear. They started great this year, beating Kansas City in the league opener, and now they find themselves in the championship round. Their trade to move on from Matthew Stafford was a rare NFL win-win for both teams. The Rams got the quarterback they needed to get over the hump and get a Lombardi trophy. Detroit Lions got the draft capital they needed to restock the cupboard. And they're those young players, Laporta, the tight end, the running back, those guys are tremendous, and they're a big part of what they do offensively. So they've got team speed. I know everyone was talking about the Miami Dolphins this year as far as team speed. The Lions aren't quite there, but that young running back, he has a way of making people miss just purely with his speed alone. Defenders think they've got the right angle to cut him off from getting around the edge, and he just outruns that. And I have yet to see a linebacker run with the rookie tight end, even after he's got the knee injury and he's wearing that big bulky knee brace. He's still outrunning most linebackers, and he's got a big enough body he can outbody most safeties. So the talent and skill that they have, that secondary is a little bit lacking. So we'll see how Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan dial up the pass game to deal with that. But the Lions bring a tough lunch pail mentality. They're physical. They play hard. They're going to fight to the last second. And Dan Campbell's done a tremendous job building a culture there. So I think the odds or whatever you want to, how you want to approach this championship game, we got to know what's going to happen with Debo before we can assess how this game is going to go down.
Yeah.
I was just going to say the last time he had an injury similar to this one, he was out 2 weeks. So it doesn't bode well, but I'm still kind of waiting for the announcement. Hopefully,
I think he'll play through it. It's the NFC Championship game. Luckily, he avoided major injury, so I think he'll play through it. They're going to need him for sure. And to me, the most impressive thing about the Lions is that I've been critical of them all season with Dan Campbell's super aggressive analytics, go for it on fourth down, go for two in certain situations. And he seems to have kind of toned that back a little bit now that the playoffs are here. And another key is Jared Goff, when he would have bad games in the regular season, it would be 3 turnovers, 4 turnovers, and really hurt the team. And he's gone on a run here now of protecting the football, 0 turnovers. So if he can do that, if the Niners can force a couple turnovers, that could be huge. And, Dre Greenlaw with an incredible divisional round game. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, turnovers are obviously key to every playoff game. The teams are so closely matched, talent-wise and coaching schematic-wise. A fluke turnover or two can certainly turn the tide of a game. But I think the Lions I think they're going to be at least mentally prepared. Do I see the 49ers as a better football team? I do. They've been there longer. They got more playoff experience. But the pressure doesn't seem to bother the Lions. So while you've got more experience on one side, you got a team that is, I haven't seen the 49ers, I'm sorry, the Lions, I haven't seen them flinch all year from any challenge. So, we shall see. But again, I think the Deebo Samuel's health and availability is going to be the biggest mystery about this game until we know what happens there.
Yeah, I think the missing part of the game against the Packers is kind of what kept the game so close. But we've talked a little bit about successful teams last week. Let's talk for a second about the Bills. I mean, in 1990, the Bills lost Super Bowl 25 to the Giants. Scott Norwood's, missed 47-yard field goal wide right. This last weekend, we saw Tyler Bass field goal. I mean, what do you think it is happening in Buffalo that they just can't quite get there, that they can't get it right? And when they do get there, they lose.
I feel bad for Bills fans. I do. Because I played and I grew up in Southern California where there was really no teams there. I'm not a fan of any team, but I feel bad for Bills fans because to be so close so many times and to suffer so many similar defeats in such a similar fashion has just got to be heart-wrenching. I think Josh Allen is a very, very good quarterback. He was let down this year by not some great offensive coordination. I think Sean McDermott is a very smart defensive coach. But he needs to get a quarterback whisperer in there. And for Josh Allen, when he came out of Wyoming, to walk into that Bills locker room and have Brian Daboll be able to take him to the next level, that was huge for his growth and development, and I think his confidence as a quarterback. Now, they haven't had somebody similar to Brian Daboll since Daboll left. So I think for Sean McDermott and Bills ownership, they've got to find the right guy to be the quarterback coach up there or to be the offensive coordinator to take Josh Allen to the next level. Because this year, of letting Josh be Josh, let him run with the football, put himself in harm's way, and we saw all the massive number of turnovers he had. That's not sustainable for long-term success. So
Yeah.
I think you've got to find a way to take the best of Josh Allen that we saw this year, limit some of those runs, eliminate some of those turnovers, and then this team can probably move forward in the playoffs after some disappointing playoff years. But at the same time, let's not forget to give the Kansas City Chiefs some credit over the last couple of years, because when the Bills lose, they're losing to the Chiefs. And it takes a remarkable effort from the Chiefs, who have the best quarterback on the planet, to pull out some very, very tight wins over these Bills.
Well, and I think some of it, and this is where I'm going to go at McDermott a little bit here. I think some of it was the defense, allowing Travis Kelce, of all people, to get wide open a couple times. I never understand that. And then that fake punt from your own 30, I didn't like that. That could have truly backfired. They were lucky to get that touchback fumble. But Rex Ryan had something interesting to say on Get Up, where he said, if the Bills are looking to take the next step, and maybe they should look to upgrade the coach. And you don't want to make a coaching change unless there's truly an upgrade out there. Go get 6-time champion Bill Belichick to take this Bills team to the next level. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's the same thought I mentioned earlier about the Cowboys. Two teams that are right on the precipice of moving from very good to possible champion. Well, then get a coach who's been a champion before to take them to that next level. So I think Bill could help either one of those organizations, would present an upgrade over Mike McCarthy or Sean McDermott. And then that fake punt was a terrible, terrible call. And I know Damar Hamlin is a great story, but if I'm going to run a fake punt in a divisional playoff game, the guy who's running the ball is going to be a guy who's experienced running the football. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So you got a backup tailback. You got somebody who's used to having the ball in his hands who's going to be the recipient of that fake if I'm calling that play. So some questionable decision-making for sure. And the Bills Mafia, as they call themselves, continues to suffer with some disappointing season-ending games.
Yeah.
I feel bad for Bills fans. I love them. If I wasn't a Packers fan, I'd probably be a Bills fan because they're just crazy. Like they seem fun to root for. But I mean, speaking of the Bills, Damar Hamlin injuries. I mean, you were a linebacker. You played in 188 games, 79 sacks, 3-time Pro Bowler. I watched some of your, old interviews and stuff, and you said on there that the game has changed over time and it's becoming more safe and more rules focused on protecting people from injuries. And you said little Timmy's mom, I think was your phrase that you used, that the game needs to appeal to the parents of these young kids. And if the parents are looking at how football is played and they don't think their child is going to be safe, then the future of football is dead. Like, we need young people still playing to get in. So Tom Brady has a take on why all these rules are being implemented and yet the injuries are still increasing. We saw so many bad ACL, Achilles injuries and stuff this season, and still with the concussions continuously. So he said that players are no longer being taught to protect themselves, and there aren't any rules, they're not conditioning as well as they used to. Offensive players aren't being taught how to take care of themselves more. Do you agree with that? Do you think that there needs to be more focus on conditioning, or do you just think that the injuries are a part of the game?
No, I think Tom's absolutely right. So while the rules have changed and the helmets are better and the field surfaces are better and all those things, the players aren't toughened in the same way that players of me and Tom's era were. You're allowed, I think, 13 padded practices during the 18-game regular season. The game is played in pads at a full speed. So how are you going to learn how to fall? How are you going to learn how to protect yourself? How are you going to learn how to tackle? How are you going to learn how to be tackled as a running back 25 times in a critical game if you've only got 13 padded practices the entire season? So while the players, on one hand, I think they love it because their body feels good, at the same time, their body has not been toughened and hardened the same way that my body was. My rookie year in Pittsburgh, we did 2-a-days in pads for 2 weeks in a row. So we did 28 padded practices just in the first 2 weeks of training camp. So while I think that is a bit extreme and a bit overboard, and Bill Cowher did not do that the next year, I certainly think there's a sweet spot between that ridiculous 2 weeks that Bill Cowher put us through and the current schedule as it works now. There's got to be a way where we can get these guys' body toughened. I would always tell my wife when I was going off to training camp, I got to go out and I got to develop my tough skin, because the first week of training camp, somebody hits you in the side of your helmet, your chin strap hits your lip, and your lip gets cut and your lip is bleeding. Week 5 of the regular season, no, your lip doesn't bleed anymore. You get hit in your arm, it was a massive bruise the first game. By week 8, you just shrug it off and you keep moving. So you develop a tough skin from all that contact. And then again, because I grew up in an era, not just from an NFL perspective, but even going down to the lower levels of football, there were just simply a lot more padded practices. I learned how to fall. Sometimes you fall and you want to slide. There's other times you fall and you want to roll with it. There's other times you want to fall and you want to flip onto your shoulder and kind of use your shoulder pads as your cushioning as you're sliding. So there's all these different ways that I learned how to fall. Without that volume of padded practices, I'm not sure how you could develop that skill. So while I think the NFL is trying to do some things, and a lot of that is public relations, as you mentioned, for little Timmy's mom, so she can feel comfortable, the practice schedule, the current CBA and what it allows as far as padded practices and training camp practices and all that, I think it does the players a detriment and does not prepare their body for the rigors of the season.
Yeah, that's a great take on that. Let's go to Ravens, Chiefs, AFC Championship game. This is going to be a lot of fun. The Ravens, the first time Lamar Jackson has gotten this far, gets to a conference championship and 1 win away from a Super Bowl. Lamar said that since he was drafted, that his goal was to come in here and win a championship for the Ravens. Meanwhile, you've got the Chiefs on the other side, who this is their 6th straight conference championship. And they've already won two Super Bowls. And but the thing is the first time on the road. Do you think that home field is going to matter in this game, the fact that it's being in Baltimore? Or how do you see that?
The Kansas City Chiefs are so playoff experienced. That, of course, those playoffs have been at home. So I think Baltimore's a tough place to play. I think that Baltimore crowd will make life difficult for the Chiefs. But when you've got that much experience, I think that has a way of kind of mitigating the home field factor for the Ravens. And let's face it, the Ravens have been an underperforming playoff team with Lamar Jackson as their quarterback. And even going back to last week, in the first half, he wasn't very good, and that team wasn't very good. They needed a Lamar Jackson speech apparently to get themselves inspired to go out there and win that ball game. So both teams, the Ravens have been uneven in this playoffs. The Chiefs have been uneven all season long. Now, to see them flip the switch against the Miami Dolphins, I think that was a bit of fool's gold. The Dolphins may have been, of all 32 NFL franchises, may have been the franchise least prepared to go to Kansas City and play in that kind of weather.
Yeah.
From a style, from a scheme, from where their home base and where they operate, where were they going to go to replicate those conditions in Miami, in Florida? There's no place to go. I remember we played, and when I was at college, we were going to play Baylor, the opening game of the season. And so after practice, our coach made us go in the steam room and in our pads and do up downs in the steam room to prepare us for that. While I don't think it prepared us. It was just something to toughen you up for the heat. There was no place Mike McDaniels could take his Dolphins team to prepare them for those conditions in Kansas City. So while I saw that as an impressive win for Kansas City, the Dolphins were not prepared for that game. So to see Kansas City have that great game and find a way to win last week gives me some confidence they can keep it going this week. But the Ravens ended the season as the best team in football, hands down, no doubt about that. And I think this may be the year where their playoff failures and Lamar Jackson actually get it together.
He's been so good this year. I feel like Lamar has taken his game to a whole nother level. And he used to be like one read and then take off. Now he seems to be so much more patient, where he'll sit back there, one read, two read, three read, and then he still has this unreal athleticism to burn you. Amanda, I know, we've been following the Ravens all season long, and That was our pre-playoff pick, was Ravens 49ers. So we're both rooting for the Ravens, and we're tired of Kansas City. The Chiefs have been there enough. We want some fresh blood in the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Marlon Humphrey and Mark Andrews both expected to play. They're getting some key players back. And I mean, nothing against Kansas City. I know a lot of people have been hating on the whole Taylor Swift situation, but it's not the players or Taylor Swift who are doing that. It's the media. You know, they run with their narratives. I like that, you know, my daughter is suddenly interested in the NFL a bit more than usual. She calls herself a Packers fan, but she'll sit down and watch the games with me now. She's like, "Mom, is that T Swift?" I'm like, "Yeah, it is." So she's 6, and I mean she's been a Packers fan for a while, but it's cool to see our you know, Super Bowl pick months ago kind of coming to fruition. And I was surprised we agreed on that anyway, because throughout most of the season we disagreed. Alex was anti-Lions all season, which is why I beat him quite handedly during the regular season. So you know, who so you're picking the Ravens to go. Who do you see coming out of the NFC?
Okay, well, no, we were just discussing the game.
Oh, you're not picking the Ravens? Oh, okay.
I always root for the champion. I know that's weird, and I know that makes me odd. Most people they like an underdog story. I love a champion because I know how hard it is to remain champion. It is the hardest thing to do in all of sports. To become a champion, not to say that it's easy, it's certainly hard. But to remain a champion, to remain a high level of success for a long period of time, to be in 6 championship games, that is worth rooting for me, because when you play the Kansas City Chiefs and you're an opposing NFL team, you circle that game on the schedule. You knew Taylor Swift was going to be there. You knew there was going to be all kind of cameras. Chances are it was going to be a Monday night game or a Sunday night game or something like that. So you knew this was going to be a prime time affair. You knew you had to bring your A game to beat the Chiefs. So when you are facing that kind of onslaught year after year after year, as the Chiefs as the Patriots were when I was playing for the Patriots, I just have so much respect for those teams that are able to maintain being on top. The coaches who are able to maintain the culture, maintain being on the cutting edge of doing what's new. The players who are able to grow their skill set when every defensive coordinator is trying to stop them, and every defensive player wants to get an interception on Patrick Mahomes, yet and still he's still the best quarterback on the planet. That always makes me root for the champion. Having said all that, I still got the Ravens to win.
That's fair. That's
like
fair.
it.
You know, as a previous Patriots player, that makes a lot of sense. And it's not so much that I'm rooting against the Chiefs, but Lamar has worked so hard to develop his skills and improve. I really think he's earned an appearance. So NFC though, who do you have? Lions or the 49ers?
You know, I did a coaching internship out with the 49ers a couple of years ago. It was a great opportunity to spend 6 weeks with Kyle. Robert Saleh was still the defensive coordinator. He was there. D'Amico Ryans was the linebacker coach. So it was just a great group of coaches, a great group of players. I loved it there. The culture that Kyle has built there, I think, is tremendous. Not to say that Dan Campbell hasn't produced an amazing culture in Detroit, but I think the Lions are just a better team, are further ahead as an organization, and they find a way to get it done. I still think it'll be a close game. The Lions are going to be able to absorb every punch. It's going to be like a Rocky movie, where Rocky absorbs all the tough blows from the opponent, but in the end, I think the Niners will still find a way to win.
Yeah, and I'm one of the biggest reasons, real quick, that I root against the Chiefs. Tell me what you think of this. Multiple years now, we've seen Patrick Mahomes. We saw it in the game against the Dolphins. We've seen it in the Bengals AFC Championship game last year, where Mahomes gets these ridiculous roughing the passer penalties in his favor, more than anyone else, in my opinion, in the league. And you know that thing where he goes along the sideline, he runs, he gets to the sideline, and then he tiptoes forward for another 8 yards. And if you come along and hit him, guess what? There's a flag, because they say he was out of bounds by a hair. I can't stand that. It would make Plus, get Taylor Swift off the TV. It's enough already. Let's go Ravens. I'm going to be rooting hard for the Ravens. And what do you think about the way they officiate Mahomes, Josh Allen, certain guys like that? Josh Allen's huge, but Mahomes, I don't get it. He's a superstar, but
there's a desire to protect all quarterbacks. apparently, except for Justin Fields, because he does not get any love as far as
No.
being
Yeah,
protected.
exactly.
So as a Bears fan, I think you've got a legitimate point with Justin Fields. But
Mhm.
star quarterbacks, the Josh Allens, the Patrick Mahomes, all those guys, they're going to get special treatment. This is how it works.
I mean,
Because
Aaron Rodgers back in the day, they made new
yes,
rules for Aaron
Yeah.
Rodgers. Like,
I,
Right.
I don't know what the final number was this year, but I think it was either maybe week 14 or week 15. There had been 53 or 54 starting quarterbacks this season in the NFL.
Yeah.
And there were some games where I flipped through and I was like, I've never heard of this guy before. And
mhm.
considering I call college football most weekends, and I'm as involved of a participant in football as anyone I know, and they've got a player starting at the quarterback position that I've never heard of before.
Mhm.
Well, that
Yeah.
doesn't make for very compelling viewing. So the
Yeah.
NFL has an obligation to protect these guys, because that's who we want to see. We want to see Patrick Mahomes go against Josh Allen in the playoffs. We don't want those guys on the sideline on crutches with a knee brace on or a boot on their ankle, because somebody fell on their foot. So they've got to protect these guys, not just because player safety is important, but because the NFL recognizes the bottom line is based on
Yeah.
these epic matchups between iconic quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nobody wants to see Jake Browning versus Mason Rudolph. Like, no offense.
No,
to one of those,
no,
but
we
yeah.
don't. We don't.
Well, I just want to say it was great meeting you. Thanks for coming on. If we get Alex going on his
Yeah. I know, I can
soapbox
go for
over here, he'll never shut up.
that. Yeah.
Well,
No,
thanks for having me on, guys.
yeah, we greatly appreciate it. Every time you come on, it's an honor and another great episode and great insight. And we can't wait for these conference championship games this weekend. So thanks as always, Chad. And have a great week, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment. Let us know what you think. And have a great one, guys. Peace out.